Hello and welcome to Buying Time. I am Mike, or Mikey, whatever you prefer to call me. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about debt. Now, over the weekend, I'm part of a small WhatsApp group, and thank you guys for inviting me into that group. Great people, really enjoy being part of that. For once in my life, I do actually feel part of something, so it means a lot to me. Today, I'd like to talk to you about debt, and that subject has raised its head over the last few days. Debt, it can be such a cruel thing sometimes, but also it can be a really, really useful tool. Just depends how you use it. For me, I learned very early on in my life what good debt and bad debt was. So I understood that if I was to buy a house on a mortgage, or a vehicle on hire purchase, or a mobile phone agreement, or things of that nature where you're actually getting something for the money that you're laying out, I saw that as good debt. And bad debt was credit card payments, personal loans where you took a loan out to try and either consolidate debt or try and get yourself through the next few months and things like that. That is essentially bad debt. I've got a credit card. I've racked up £3,500 of fuel bills, Tesco bills, kids' activities, clothing, car repairs, you name it. It's all bad debt. I've got nothing to show for it now. So that is a case of bad debt. Now, in my own personal finances, I'm about £30,000 in debt. Now, that is partly because of a vehicle, partly because of a massive legal bill I ended up getting hit with. Very, very hard pill to swallow, but I managed those debts by paying them. Now, for me, when I get paid every month, I immediately pay my debts immediately, so that whatever's left over is what I have. Now, that isn't a lot, and at the minute it really isn't a lot. It's like less than £100 to try and live through a full month looking after children, and it is impossible, let me tell you. And I have been falling in debt more and more every month. Nothing I can do about it. It's just going to happen. So I just wanted to touch on debt, and some of the things that I understand about debt. Now, for me, there's a rule out there called the 20-10 rule. So don't borrow any more than 20% of your yearly salary income. Don't borrow any more than 20% of that figure. Secondly to that, don't spend any more than 10% of your monthly income on servicing that debt or your monthly repayment charges. All right. So the rule of 20-10. Try and bear that. If you can keep that in your head whenever you're doing anything, all right. And if you know that you've gone past that 20% mark of your salary, then that's when you need to be having a word with yourself and saying, "Whoa, stop! You're doing too much." Start trying to educate yourself a little bit on money, finance. Now, I'm no expert whatsoever, but for me, I knew from a very early age, I started accruing debt very early on in my life. At 17, I bought a vehicle, had a mobile phone contract, had a personal loan, credit card, I think, a few other bits and pieces in there. And before I knew it, my monthly salary was just going on repayments. And I had nothing left at the end, and it really did start to get me down. That was when I was younger. I did eventually, because I wanted to buy my first house, I cut it all back. I sent my vehicle back. Now, that's another thing I want to touch on in a minute, is vehicle finance. I sent my vehicle back. I sold the I had a massive toolbox on finance. I sold that. I cleared my credit card debt down and got to a stage where I had no real debt. And that's where I managed to get my first mortgage. Now, you know, that took a little bit of education, as in me doing a bit of research at the time. I didn't know anything about money. I just knew that the sort of like trappings of everyday life had got me to a point where I didn't have any sort of disposable income. So I had to sort of do a little bit of research, and I realised I needed to cut all of this debt back. Also, it's known that over 120% of a household's income is owed to debt. Also personal debt per household is £16,000 plus per person. Obviously, as an adult, just take that in for a minute. Generally, in most houses up and down the UK, which are 2 or 3 bedroom, with a couple of teenage kids and a mum, a dad, that sort of thing, it's just scary to think that every house is carrying that weight of debt. And, debt is affecting all of our lives. We have to use it to get by. It is a very valuable tool. And the problem you'll have is once you've lost it, it's very, very difficult to get back on the ladder again. Please also try and avoid paying interest on interest. Now, I don't know whether you can do this because I've never had a payday loan, but let's just say you've got a payday loan now of, I don't know, let's say 35 quid, and it comes to the day where you haven't got that £35 to pay the repayment, and you use a credit card to pay that payment. Effectively, you're paying interest on interest. Same thing can happen with a catalogue. Now, I don't know whether there's regulation in place now that has stopped all of that, but some of my experience predates the bankers crash of 2008. So now whenever I'm getting a loan agreement, a credit card, anything like that, I look at what the repayment charges are, what's the total repayment charge, and if it's extortionate, I'd just say no, no matter how desperate I am, because once you do that, the situation becomes even more desperate. So avoid it if you can. Just avoid doing that. Don't pay interest on interest. I know it's a lot easier said than done, especially when you've got no cash flow, but you can do it. Reach out to people, talk to people. It's, you never know where help is going to come from, and when your hands are tied so far around your back and you're weighed down with this debt, you can escape it. It doesn't mean to say that the debt's going to be wiped. No, that's not what I'm saying. The debt will always be against your name, and it will be there till it's paid off. But there are things in place now for people whereby all of that debt can be taken into account. A token payment can be offered to your creditors, and you can get yourself back into a situation whereby you've got all of that income coming back in. You've got a large disposable income again, and try not to make the same mistake again, and don't feel ashamed by it. There's millions of people up and down the country that have had to go through this. In my own personal experience, my ex-partner was straddled with around 25 grand's worth of debt. Unsecured personal debt. Now that's very important. Unsecured personal debt. In the end, she used a debt management program company that consolidated all the debts, sent out token repayments, had to set her up a new bank account because you lose all the facilities such as overdrafts, credit card facilities. All of those things you're going to lose if you go on a debt management program. But give it a shot. If you're at the stage where you literally can't afford to put food on the table, you need to do it. And also cut back on things, subscriptions, television. There's so much out there that we can sign up to that on the day you think, oh, £8 a month, it's nothing, I can afford that. But when you've got 3, 4, 5 subscriptions, before you know it, it's £50, £60 a month, and it is a lot of money. You have to be careful with it, really careful. I just want to touch on vehicle finance now. Now, I don't know if you guys out there are aware of this, but if you find yourself in a position whereby you have got vehicles on finance and you're struggling to put food on the table, in any hire purchase agreement, now hire purchase HP is the most important part here. I can't talk about PCP arrangements. The only ones I've ever got involved in were the ones where I was paying the car off. So I knew about this when I was 18, when I sent I bought a vehicle on finance. I had it for 18 months. And then after 18 months, I couldn't afford to pay it anymore. And then I found this clause in the contract that said at the halfway point of any hire purchase agreement, you can send the vehicle back and the finance arrangement is dropped. Now, that was very, very useful to me at that time. So that's exactly what I did. I sent a letter. You have to send a letter, and then they contact you to make arrangements to collect the vehicle. They pick the vehicle up, and that's it. That's the last payment you make on it. Now, I did that for myself. My current partner was in the same situation when I first got with her. A vehicle that didn't even run, that was on a hire purchase arrangement. Managed to get that picked up halfway through the agreement. I've now currently got a car that's a very expensive car. We can't afford it. It's going to have to go back. We've gone over the halfway period, more than halfway period. If anything, we're now losing money. You know, you can send the vehicle back. So just remember that with hire purchase arrangements, you can send the vehicle back at the halfway point and beyond. Okay? Having looked online, I've found a few companies or services that I just want to make a mention to. So angelaadvance.co.uk, advicedebt.org.uk, nationaldebtrelief.co.uk, stepchange.org, which is the one that I would personally use, citizensadvice.org.uk, which is again one that I would personally use. Now, I'll put these links in the description. Just if you're stuck and you're struggling, try to make a change, make a difference in your own life. Debt can get you very, very low. I don't want to say how low it gets you, because unfortunately we can't talk about that these days, or that's how it would seem. It's a shame, really. But debt can be a big, big weight and a burden, especially when you've got no cash flow. And you can see I've been in a position myself where I didn't even have enough in my bank to pay for 2 pot noodles and a loaf of bread, and that was before I had a child as well. So you can, and I'm far from out of trouble. I've got 30,000 plus that needs paying back. I don't want to go on a debt management program because I've worked so hard over the years to pay everything and keep my head above water, but I have seen the benefits of turning over to a debt management program. Separately, I just want to make a big mention to the group of guys on YouTube. So just to mention a few channels, I can't remember them all, but I'm just learning at the moment how to post links and add channels and things like that. So if I can do it, it'll be in the description box. But it's Kirky Talks, Bert Struggles, Mike Bailey, Uncle Jammer. Top man you are. Honestly, mate, I've been going through all your videos over this weekend. Talk a lot of sense, mate, really do. Clinton McGregor, and I think there's another one called Cammy or something like that. So look, I'm sorry if I've not got all your names in there, but I'm going to try and post all the links to your channels. Thank you for taking the time for watching the video, and yeah, I really appreciate it. Look after yourselves, take care, and I'll see you on the next one.